Good morning, Johnathan Barber, Senior Mortgage Specialist here. Thank you for tuning in to another live Facebook homebuyer seminar. We are so glad that you've joined us today on a beautiful Saturday morning. It is Black Panther weekend, so I'm drinking from my cool carnivore cup, and I have my Super Grant shirt, and we are ready to go. I'm so excited and so glad that you've joined us. This is part one of a two-part series. Many of our clients have asked us to talk about a particular issue, and we're going to tackle that issue with our guest speaker today, who was kind enough to join us at the last minute when our scheduled speaker could not make it. So we'll be talking to Joyce Leathers here momentarily. But I'm so excited. We have a lot to discuss. So thank you for tuning in. Ground rules. We're using a bit of new technology here today. So it's going to be a little challenging reading all of your questions. So I can promise you that if we don't answer your question during this live interactive session, Joyce and I will find you. We will find you, and we will answer your questions. So feel free to go ahead and post any questions, comments. We are blessed to have one of the best, most honest real estate professionals joining us. So we do encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. But as you post your questions and your comments, please remember that these videos are educational tools. So we want the questions and we want the comments to be very professional and very appropriate. You can be inappropriate after the session. It's Saturday, so do that later. But right now, we're just trying to get the word out to the community, to empower, to give the community financial fitness. Which reminds me, we do have a host of other Facebook Live seminars on the YouTube channel. And a lot of you have asked about the credit repair seminar. It is a very powerful credit repair piece, so you definitely want to check it out. And we will repost the link to that video on the bottom of this feed. But these videos we encourage you to check out. We encourage you to share, like, comment. These are free videos, free information that will help you build your credit score. While other people are charging hundreds and thousands of dollars to give you information that'll move your credit score from 400 to the 660 that you need for the Super Grant, we give this information to you for free. So check it out, share it, copy it, wrap it up in a bow, and give it as a present. This is powerful information that we're giving to the community because of our mission, which is to empower. So we thank you for being a part of all of this, for telling your friends and family about what we're doing, sharing these videos, joining us on a Saturday morning. You are the spine, you are the pulse of everything that we're doing. So, we thank you for everything. We thank you for being part of our mission. And 2017 was a phenomenal year, and we owe that to you. Thank you for helping us with that. And for every year that we've had our office located at 130 Tri-County Parkway, right by Benihana's. So other housekeeping, we talked about that. We talked about that. Make sure that, like I said, you'll be getting your mortgage interest statements in the mail, and you'll also get your Super Grant mortgage credit certificate. Please use a certified tax preparer this year. Take that documentation to your tax man, and he will help you get the maximum benefit. We want to make sure that those of you who use the Super Grant, we want to make sure that you get that mortgage credit certificate money every year. We want to make sure that's applied properly. If you did not get your mortgage interest statement or your MCC, definitely give me a call or an instant message, and I'll help you get a new copy. But so that's enough of the housekeeping. I am so excited to introduce my friend who has been in the real estate business for, goodness, over 11 years. I like this particular professional because whenever I need the truth and nothing but the truth, unfiltered, with no flavor, just straight, cold, hard facts, I can always rely on Joyce Leather. She's very honest and very reliable. Case in point, I called her at midnight and she agreed to fill in today's spot, which was actually perfect because this professional is one of the most honest realtors in the market today. So with that, just to remind you, we are reading the feeds, trying to read the feeds, and it is interactive. So if you have a question, just kind of jump right in. I have some questions for Miss Joyce, and I'm sure you do too. So with that, I'd love to introduce my trusted advisor, Miss Joyce Leathers of RE/MAX. Are you with us, Joyce?
Hey, Johnathan. Yes, I'm here.
Well,
thank you for that great introduction. That was powerful.
Well, you're great, man. I'm telling you, real heroes don't need capes. You are a hero, and we're so glad you joined us. And thank you for taking time, especially at the last minute.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you having me, and I just want to actually give kudos to you for always being upfront and honest with customers, and always providing education. That's very important. Teaching them about the whole real estate transactions and the processes and what's out there. So thank you, Johnathan.
Well, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, all right. So I know you have a busy weekend ahead. So I'm going to ask the first question, and you can join me in reading some of the questions as they're posted. The first question that I have is the same question that some of my clients ask me all the time. They say, Mr. Barber, it's Sunday and I want to look at houses. And sometimes they do that without being pre-approved, but we won't talk about that. That's a conversation that we'll discuss with the other realtor on March the 3rd. We want to keep this a positive conversation, but they go to these open houses and they look at these houses and then they ask me, hey, well, what's the difference between a buyer agent and a dual agent? So can you help us understand that?
Absolutely. First, a dual agent is basically an agent that is representing both the buyer and the seller. What happens is the seller, they decide to put their house on the market, and they go and find their own real estate agent, and they hire that person to market their house and help them get the best price for their home. So if you're working with someone that say, well, I'll be a dual agent in this transaction, they're basically letting you know that they are representing the seller who already hired them first, and they will be representing you, the buyer. So they're working both sides of the transaction.
Wow.
And when that happens, the agent themselves become what I would consider null and void. They cannot basically lean either way for the buyer or the seller. They have to become, pretty much mute at that point.
Wow. Okay. So you said the agent becomes null and void. So,
yes.
So, well, for example, if there is an inspection and there's a roof issue, so the agent is neutral. The agent can't go after the seller and say, hey, you need to fix this roof for the buyer because she's representing both. It sounds like it's almost a little bit of a conflict.
It kind of can become a conflict at some point for either one, the buyer or the seller. They can't say, let's say if the buyer is offering $100,000. So the agent knows that this seller could sell their house for $90,000. That agent cannot tell you, hey, offer 90. I know they could take 90. They can't lean either way. And the same instance as you were talking about with the roof, if they know that the seller can fix the roof, they can't go and say, hey, ask for the roof. to be repaired. They just could only allow the buyer to ask for what they know to ask for. They can't, really represent to the fullest of their ability when they're working both ends of the transaction.
So so what are the benefits? Are there any benefits of picking a dual agent? It sounds like your hands are tied if you're a dual agent. You can't help your buyer perfectly, and it almost sounds like you're leaning more toward helping the seller. So are there some?
Well, you have to remember the seller is the person. First of all, real estate agents are only paid on a commission base. So if they are representing then the seller pays the commission. The buyer never pays the real estate commission, the real estate agent fee. They never pay that. So, and you're typically hired first by that seller. So pretty much you may already have a relationship with the seller, and then along comes the buyer. Not that you would misrepresent the buyer. It's just, it's hard. It's a difficult task. I would say that.
Okay. So in your opinion, in your humble opinion, views not necessarily representing those of the Cincinnati Board of Realtors or RE/MAX, in your opinion, what's the best?
In my opinion, it would be better for the buyer to go out and hire their own real estate agent.
Okay.
They've interviewed that agent said, and understand what their wants and their needs are, and they totally represent that buyer. Okay. They have a fiduciary duty to represent the buyer to the best of their ability. So in my humble opinion, not representing anybody, I would suggest any buyer to go out and find their own agent. Okay. I would not suggest that they work with the agent that's sitting in the open house if that agent is hired by that seller, because the seller already hired them, and the seller is who's paying that commission fee.
Okay. Now again, so the buyer agent is your personal representative, but you were saying you don't have to pay that person any commission.
Absolutely. You get to run that person around. They show you houses. They represent you. But as a buyer, you do not pay the fee. The Excellent. Seller always pays the fee. So here locally in Ohio, that's a benefit for our buyers. So why not go out and hire your own agent that you don't have to pay for?
Okay.
It just makes sense, right?
Well, now and again, I'm glad I have the most honest realtor I know during this particular seminar.
I think I'm too honest sometimes.
Well, but it keeps you in business. You've been in business 11 years doing what you're doing, and you're doing it the right way.
I don't know any other way, actually.
Right.
But to be upfront.
Yep. So let me ask you the $1 million question.
Uh-oh.
Yep. See, my thing is, my problem is, and I'm gonna be honest too, and I know I'm gonna make some enemies by saying this, but I want to help my buyers and help my community. My challenge is I get clients who have their own agent, but the agents aren't helping the buyers find a house. The agent sends me a client, I get them pre-approved. I tell the agent, hey, look, so-and-so is pre-approved for a $150,000 house. Go at it, go help them find a house. But the agent isn't, and yeah, I see you, Keebler. There are a lot of honest realtors. So I'm not saying there's no honest realtor, but Joyce's, I've known Joyce, and I don't know you, but I welcome that opportunity. And again, this is live and interactive, so we are reading these feeds, so thank you. But I'm in a weird spot because I don't want to be dishonest myself and tell my client who's referred by X realtor, hey, your realtor sucks. You need to find a new realtor. So can you say that for me during the seminar, which will keep me out of trouble? What is a good realtor? When do you know you have a good realtor? When do you know you need to find a new realtor?
Okay. First, all realtors, we are professionals. So everyone coming into the business, we have a fiduciary duty to be professional to our buyer. But to talk about some of the things that a person should look for in a good agent would be a person that can help you find your way to home ownership. A bad agent or a person that's not helping you, it could be a bumpy road ahead. So you want to be careful in who you hire as your agent. Some of the things you want to look for in an agent, you first want to sit down and meet with someone. I don't have any buyers in my entire 11 years that actually closed the deal with me who we did not sit down and come to what I call a meeting of the minds. I understand what their wants and needs are, and as an agent, and we go out and we look for property. You have to be available. You know, your availability, your schedule has to be available. You have to be committed to finding that perfect home for your buyers, and you have to just basically specialize in working with buyers.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. So the sit down meet is important. Now, what about, okay, so I get that. You understand their wants and the needs. You want to make sure they're committed. You sit down with the agent. And if the agent, I guess, doesn't want to take the time to sit down with you and meet with you, you know, right off jump, that's not the agent you want to work with. What about follow-up? A lot of my clients, they have one phone conversation with the realtor. And we do know realtors and loan officers are super busy, but can you talk a little bit about follow-up, about contact availability?
Yes, follow-up is very important. Communication is very important. And typically when I have that sit-down meeting with the buyer, that's what we talk about, how we're going to communicate. Are you okay with phone calls, text messaging, inboxing one another? So we come and establish, you know, what's the means of how we're going to communicate. So follow-up is extremely important, especially in this market today. Houses are, the average house right now is not around in this area, it's not on the market over 10 days before it's sale pending. So right. If you see a house that you're interested in and you're able to purchase this home, then, you know, you want someone that's going to follow up with you and get you in that house in a timely manner. So
right.
Follow-up is extremely important.
Just to dovetail on what you're saying, so you get pre-approved, that's great, especially getting pre-approved for the super grants. Getting pre-approved is one thing that's wonderful. It's awesome. Getting your paperwork to the loan officer, that's wonderful. That's awesome. But you've got to find a real estate agent like Ms. Joyce is describing, one who is accountable and available, because like you said, the average house is only on the market 10 days. So if you get pre-approved and you have a realtor who's not Johnny on the spot, the house is gone by the time you get in the car. So that's a very good point, and I appreciate you making that point. Just a couple, let's take a minute to look at some of our questions. Thank you, Tracy, appreciate that. Keebler, thank you. And Adrian, thank you. Any questions anyone might have for Ms. Joyce Leathers? Thank you, Vanessa. All right. Now, again, Joyce Leathers is available on Facebook and via standard telephone and text. So you can reach out to her and ask her more questions if you didn't get to ask your question today. But Joyce, I just want to give you a round of applause and thank you for being so candid with us today and taking the time out of your morning to help us understand some of these issues. So thank you for being a part of our Saturday.
You're welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for having me, and give me a call if you need me again.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, folks, that was Joyce Leathers of RE/MAX, and I do work with tons of realtors, but Joyce is phenomenal. If you're looking for a dynamic realtor who will pick up a phone call at midnight and jump on an opportunity, give her a call. Let's see. Can you talk about being honest with your realtor, particularly regarding credit? Oh, Keebler asked a great question. The question is aimed at a loan officer. Can you talk about being honest with your realtor's communication? And although we weren't planning on talking about this particular issue today, but let's go there because it is an interactive seminar. Loan officers cannot discuss private information with an outside party. It's against the law. But loan officers can and should tell realtors, hey, your client needs work, or your client is not credit worthy right now, or your client needs to watch the free Facebook Live online credit repair step-by-step guide. And maybe once the client watches that step-by-step guide and follows up with me and calls me, the client might become eligible in 6 months. So that's usually what we do at the Tri-County office. If the client isn't eligible, we call the realtor and let them know, hey, look, the client needs some work, but we are not going to share a credit report or credit information per se with any realtor. Let me add a little bit more to that though, Keebler. And this is important, and I see that we do have a lot of realtors watching as well. Earlier this week, I reposted an interview where Kiplinger Finance interviewed me about 10 years ago, discussing pre-approvals versus pre-qualifications. And for the record, let me say, and I'm sure that some of my loan officer friends would agree, a pre-qualification is meaningless. It's garbage. It's basically a conversation where you ask your client how much he makes, you divide that number by 3, and you say, well, you can probably afford a $120,000 house. You don't pull credit, you don't run the information through desktop underwriting, and you really don't collect a single shred of evidence about the income. So you don't want to work with loan officers who are just pre-qualifying. I can get my son to pre-qualify. Okay, you want to get pre-approved, which means we pull your credit, we run the information through desktop underwriting, we get the words approve, eligible, which means you're not wasting your gas driving the client around. We get those words approve, eligible, and we share the approve, eligible information with the real estate agent so that he knows or she knows a deal, a transaction will close in 30 to 35 days. So credit is important, but also running the information through the computer, that's equally as important. So great question, Keebler. Let's see. Thank you, Tanya. Would you recommend speaking with a loan officer before getting a realtor? We need to do more morning seminars. People are asking great questions. I don't even know what to say. That's so great, but the answer is absolutely positively. I had a conversation with a client about a month ago when I had my metaphor brain working, and I asked the client, would he buy a wedding dress for his wife before meeting the wife? And the client thought about it a minute, and he said, well, you know what? You're right. I can't go looking for a house, find a real estate agent. I can't do that until I find the pre-approval, because the pre-approval will tell you the purchase price, the program type, if you're getting the super grant or not. It'll help you find the parameters to what you share with your agent. So the agent looks at the pre-approval and says, oh, okay, well, you're pre-approved with JB for a $120,000 house using the super grant. So now I know what's right on the contract. So you absolutely positively want to meet with your loan officer before even thinking about meeting a realtor. Yesterday, I spoke with a gentleman, and he wanted me to meet after the fact. He wanted me to meet his realtor at his home on President's Day to help sketch out the purchase contract for a deal. So bless his heart, sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet, but it just doesn't work like that. And I pulled the guy's credit, and it took me like 45 minutes to break his heart and tell him, hey, look, you need to cancel your meeting. Your credit needs work. You can't buy a house. And that Monday morning will be a waste of time. So cancel everything and let's start properly, step by step. So yes, ma'am, you absolutely positively want to get pre-approved before you meet with a real estate agent. I recommend I need new glasses. So I recommend to my clients that if they're approved for a certain amount of money, that we not go all the way up to, okay. So Keebler asked a question. if you get a pre-approval amount, let's say we get you pre-approved for 200, Keebler is asking if I agree that the client shouldn't try to hit that peak. And again, I guess this is Confession Saturday. I never ask a client how high he wants to go, how high I can get him approved. I always ask the client a trick question. I always say, what do you feel comfortable paying per month? So when I ask that question and the client says, for example, I only want to pay $800 a month, but the client makes $70,000 a year and can easily qualify for 200. If the client tells me he only wants to pay $800 a month, I'm only getting them pre-approved for a $100,000 house. And I'm going to explain to the client, hey, a $100,000 house gets you the payment that you just said you're comfortable paying. So it doesn't make sense for me to pre-approve you for $200,000. Then you and your realtor are driving all over Canada looking for a $200,000 house when you're just going to be disappointed at the end of the day because the payment's going to be about $1,500 or so. So Keebler, always listen to the client's needs first. If the client says he only wants to pay $500,000, I know I'm going to talk to you and the client about a $60,000 mortgage. So I hope that answers the question. I've heard that an underwriter can out a hard stop or delay even after the work. Can you help explain this? I don't understand that question. Okay, so I think you're asking about underwriters. Underwriters are human. They're human, and they have the unfair, difficult job of looking at evidence, pieces of paper. They don't even talk to clients. They're not allowed to talk to humans. They're fed bread and water in a cage, and they don't even get good bread and they don't even get good water, but they're fed this bread and water, and they're given these horrible conditions, and they're asked to look at paper and make a prediction based on that paper. And the prediction is, will this client be able to repay the mortgage based on paper? So the underwriters use credit, capacity, and collateral, and they have to make their decision based on the data. So usually an underwriter is not going to kill a loan based on the evidence if the loan officer and processor do a good job up front. We're going to look at your doggone pay stubs and find out that you have $1,300 a month child support, which kills your debt ratio. We're going to look at that stuff, and we're going to find it before it even gets to an underwriter. So if we're doing our job up front, and if you're doing your job up front by giving us all of the truth and all of the information, an underwriter is not going to deny your loan because there will be nothing to deny. So hopefully that answers the question. Underwriters are just doing their job. They're just paper pushers. They're just looking at the evidence, and they're human. But if you give bad paperwork or bad information, or if you withhold information, I have seen cases where an underwriter will stop a loan from moving forward. For example, recently we had a gentleman who had a foreclosure. 1 billion years ago, the guy foreclosed. And it happened so long ago that he didn't feel it was necessary to mention it. I wouldn't. If I had a foreclosure 1 million years ago and I've rebuilt my life, blah, 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 it would be irrelevant to me. So the guy didn't mention the fact that he had a foreclosure 1 billion years ago. But banks, they don't do paperwork quickly. So the bank actually processed his foreclosure not 1 million years ago, but recently, and it killed his loan. So we denied that loan because, of course, you need to have seasoning after a foreclosure. Had he told us about the foreclosure, it might have prompted us to dig deep into the transfer history and find out if that foreclosure paperwork was processed. But long story short, underwriters do what they're supposed to do. And if they need to deny a loan, they will deny a loan. But hopefully it never gets to that point because we do a great job up front. All right. Okay. So we have one more question from an insurance agent talking about the insurance piece. I have a very close friend of mine. She's purchasing a home this weekend. I love you, homie, man. I'm so happy for you. I am so happy for you. And I picked the house. I just want to point that out. I found that house for you. Great house. And I'm looking forward to your housewarming party. But anyway, a good friend of mine, she found a house and she wanted to know the mortgage payment, the total mortgage payment. So in fact, I had Miss Tanya Kelly call the client over the weekend so that we can find out exactly what the insurance payment was going to be. A loan officer can only guess about insurance. We're not insurance agents, so we can only give you a guesstimate. So I gave my friend a guesstimate, but I encouraged her to call an insurance agent to get a better idea. So you do want to have a relationship with a good insurance company so that as you're looking for a home, you can call your insurance agent and find out if the house is in a flood zone, if there have been a million claims on that property and the house actually burnt down 2 years ago and now it's going to cost you more for insurance. You want to have a relationship with an agent because the agent will tell you, yes, you have dangerous lizards and iguanas and alligators and pit bulls, and the house doesn't have a fire alarm system, so you're going to have higher insurance. You want to be able to talk with an insurance agent about insuring your home because it's a very important part of your principal, interest, taxes, insurance payment. So great question. And we're going to answer one last question. Going once, going twice. So this has been an exciting session. And we've got quite a bit of information out to our listeners today. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, I encourage you to contact me after the seminar via text, email, passenger pigeon, or Facebook. But again, we thank all of you for sharing the information about what we're doing in the community, helping first-time buyers, helping second-time buyers, helping people refinance their homes. We thank you for being a very important part of what we're doing. So thanks for joining us on Panther Weekend. And I think I'm missing the camera. Anyway, have a great weekend. Thanks again, and call me if you need me. 518-6318. Ask me about the Super Grand.